Today I want to talk about the greatest commandments that Yeshua reiterated when he was asked by the scribes and the Pharisees. And this is Lighthouse, year 2015, week 4. And so in the reading of Mark's Gospel in chapter 12 of Mark, one of the scribes came, and having heard the reasoning together between Yeshua HaMashiach and the other scribes and Pharisees, who were the religious leaders of that day, representing in our day the pastors and leaders in the fellowships of the different churches who came to reason with Yeshua HaMashiach. And when he heard them reasoning together, and perceiving that he had answered them well, he asked, "Which is the first commandment of all?" And Yeshua answered him. Now, I think a lot of us would have said, yes, the first commandment is one of the 10 commandments, or the summary of the 10 commandments of doing good to others as we want others to do to us, the golden rule. But this is the commandment that Jesus said is the first commandment. "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord." That's called the Shema. In Hebrew it says Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. This is said every day by Jewish people to remind them that there is only one God, and the one God is one, and he is Lord. Then Yeshua said, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is the first commandment. The second is like, namely this: Thou shalt love thy neighbour as thyself. There is none other commandment greater than these." So I'd like to just talk for a little while about these commandments. The reason why Yeshua HaMashiach reiterated the Shema, that the Lord God is one and he is Lord, is that he knew that people live in a world of wanting their own gods, wanting many gods, even to have themselves as a god. And so it was important that the Jewish people remembered there is only one God, and this one God, this God is Lord, Adonai. And then Yeshua added to that commandment, this commandment that there is the need to worship the Lord our God with all our hearts, souls, minds, body and strength. Now the reason why it's important to love the Lord your God with all our heart is that if we don't love with all our heart, it means our hearts are divided. Part of our heart is loving something else and having some other treasure as governing our heart's desires. And if we don't love with all our heart, then there is instability. There is unbelief. There's not a united heart belief in what God as Lord says to us. So the heart becomes divided, unstable, and as James said, if a man asks for wisdom and has a heart and doesn't ask in full faith, he is an unstable man. How can he expect God to answer him? The second part is that we are to love the Lord our God with all our soul. Our souls are made up of mind, emotions, and wills. And if that's not completely whole, our mind with our thinking, and our emotions that come from our feelings, and then our wills to action, if that is not united in wholeness, then we have denial. We have this stage of ambivalence where we're not sure whether we have full unity even in our own thinking and our own emotions and our own desire for action. And so we tend to deny that we have it together, and then we can't obey God's commandments. A conflicted mind, emotions and will leads to denial. Next, there was the having all our minds stayed on God and using all our minds to follow God's will. Nowadays, our minds are often drugged either by legal drugs, which is like medication, or coffee, or tea, or any other drug that the world considers to be legal, such as alcohol, or can be drugged by medication drugs. And these drugs prescribed by doctors and by psychiatrists, they dumb down the mind, and it means the person cannot use all their mind. Their minds are not totally available to think through choices and actions and decide with the will. The mind tends to be drugged to the point where it's almost asleep. And I believe that's part of the problem we live in these days. We live in a days where there is this sleep coming upon society, and we're not alert to what we need to be having going through our minds. So we need to have our minds not drugged and not asleep, certainly not full of illegal drugs. We need to have them alert and ready to think clearly. We don't want to have our minds dependent on medications or dependent on other substances. And the last part of the commandment was to love the Lord your God with all your body and all your strength. This is the part of our bodies that leads to action. And we believe with our hearts, we think with our mind and our emotions and our wills, and we decide what we're going to do with our behavior. And then we, with our mouths, which is part of our bodies, and with our actions of our parts of it, like arms and legs, we act out what we know is the will of God for us. Now, if our bodies are not well, and we can't use all of our bodies, and part of our body is sick, we don't have the chance to be fully able to obey. We have a spirit possibly of infirmity. And so it is important to be able to worship the Lord our God with all our strength, not to be depleted in strength and weak in strength, so that restricts our motivation to act, because part of our body is not able to function properly. This is why Yeshua HaMashiach, his death and his resurrection, led to the fact that by his stripes we can be healed. He wants us to be able to use all our bodies and strength to serve him. I love this commandment that it says, Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. The Lord God is one, and he is Lord. And we must worship the Lord our God and serve him with all our heart, all our soul, and all our body and strength. And if we don't do it with all, then we are not whole. And things are not, as Yeshua would like us to be, wholly available to serve him.